But also another huge issue, which is one that he brought up, was the arms situation and us supplying other countries. You know, there was a story back a while ago about us giving F-18s to Egypt, and yeah, like people were furious about like, why are we giving them military, ability, or supplying nations with weapons that they full well know will be used, oftentimes in a hostile conflict, and those times will be for people who are not armed, for civilians. Where do you guys stand on that idea for the nation not playing a part in that, even though that does facilitate a chance for us to profit off of that? Definitely more of a moral conflict, but money is king in this nation and in the world. People will kill each other over money. So where do you guys stand on the whole arms trade?
Okay. Before I start on my point, let me go back just really quickly. I do think that the Pope was making that. I appreciate what he said, but I do feel like he was making it more personal, given the fact that his parents were.
He was from Argentina.
Yeah. But about this, I have a huge problem with the way America does a lot of things when it comes to the military, war. When we leave, and we leave so much stuff there, huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh. So let's just take this whole ISIS thing right now. We created ISIS. We've created 90% of the things that we have to deal with in the Middle East. We've created. I'm saying 90%. That's just me making a ballpark guess. But when you look at it,
we're not saying we made it crazy.
We're not going to take that statistic into fact.
Yeah, we're not going to take that.
Like I said,
that's not actual statistics.
Jaysin believes that 90% of the problems we are faced with off of their aggression has to do with us pissing them off. Basically.
Or us giving them the means to fight us.
Exactly. When we go over there, and this has been proven, that when we go over there and we fight against them and then we leave and we leave stuff behind, or we train them and give them weapons, eventually it comes back to haunt us. Osama bin Laden was trained by us. We left the arms and stuff like that for ISIS to rise up and now come at us. And
like they're riding around in U.S. Humvees.
Yeah. So for that reason, I don't want us giving away our arms, because for one, that means we now have to put money into replacing those. So now that's more money we have to spend, which could go to other things that sorely need the money. But also, my big thing is I don't want it coming back to us. I don't want us getting hurt because we were too stupid to say, okay, we know we're about to pull out of this country. We know that in previous times when we pulled out too quickly and we left things, it's come back to haunt us. We need to make sure when we pull out that we are taking our stuff. However much it costs, takes, however long, as long as we are taking all of our things. When it comes to giving people things, again, I don't want any parts of it. I think we need to keep our stuff, and we need to make sure that, if a country needs aid, then we send, some of our people to aid them, not our things.
Well, you are aware that the reason this is an issue is because it is a profitable venture, and that oftentimes when they take the stuff over there to use for the purpose of using it, it costs more for them to bring it back as opposed to just leave it there. So for them to bring it back would cost us more in that process. And because of all the money we spend in military technology and development, we're making better stuff anyway. So while that stuff rots out there and goes to the bones, we've got newer stuff growing. We've got an F-22 jet that's so superior we won't we retired it.
Let me speak on that, because the military. Okay, so I was in the Coast Guard. The whole upgrading and everything, that takes years. In that time, that when we give something to someone else, in that time that we're trying to upgrade and get something better, that's enough time that they can attack us, or we could have used that in aid to that country. And we could still then take those things, and instead of having to completely build something new to replace that, we can take that and upgrade it. The Coast Guard, the boat I was on, it's extremely old. I mean, like, so old it had asbestos in it. They were just finally talking about upgrading it. And that was back in 2012 when rumors started that it was going to be upgraded. And I think it was just this year, they finally got around or finally starting to upgrade it. And so if we give that ship, let's say we give that ship to someone, right, that they could do a lot with it. And all we have to do is say, okay, well, we're upgrading it, so let's upgrade it. Instead, what we're going to have to do is spend more money. Yes, it's profitable, but we're having to then spend money to not only fix that, but to fix it, to make something new, but we're also having to upgrade it to where it is. And that's just, it's not.
Well, and I kind of see what he's saying. He's saying that in the time that we could have, the money that we spend on taking it away, we would spend less money not having to fight them against the stuff that they got from us. Like, everyone laughs about the amount of money we've spent on this war so far. If we wouldn't have left that stuff in the first place, they would not have been able to fight as long as they've been fighting now, because they wouldn't have, had the resources they already had, and they wouldn't have been able to take the things that we gave them and go steal other resources for other people to continue to fund themselves.
But that's the big problem, though, that he's making the case for, is that because we are enabling them to have these weapons, because we are giving it to them, whether we leave it or not, we have cases where we are handing them weapons because it will profit us in the end.
Well, and I was just about to get to that. And the reason I get to that, and I hate to, it's tough to talk about these things, because when you talk about these things, none of us are military generals, none of us are military high-ups. Well, all you can do is kind of speculate a little bit. But I hate to think that we do this, but I think we do in this country. The same thing Brandon said earlier. When did we really start to prosper in this country? What got us out of our Great Depression? Wars. That was a model that we learned a long time ago, and we've continued to implement to this day. It's like you were trained to something as a child. You knew how to play piano. Yeah, you may not be able to play piano as good as you could as a child because you ain't played it for a few years. But when you sit down in front of that piano, you still know a couple keys. And I think that's what we've done. People have made their name, made their livelihood on the military. So when we go through times of peace, these people are like, I'm going broke. There's no wars. I'm not making no money. This is all that I do. Instead of what we did back then was retrograde those factories to make military weapons, we should then turn those back into other prosperous factories when we get done. When we're done with wartime, turn it back into a car factory, turn it back into a plumbing or steel mill or something of the such to create other things. But these companies don't do that because, one, our wars, they didn't last that long, but you need so much even after the war, it's prosperous for them to continue. And then after our war, we have to continue to build our surplus, so they don't see any reason to change those factories or even slowly change those factories. So what do? They push and promote for more war because they get a lot of money from it, whether it be the oil company. All of those Humvees and planes and jets got to get their fuel from somewhere. Or it be the dude actually making the bullets, or the dudes actually making the guns, or the guns or the planes. They are making money off of war and making trillions upon trillions upon numbers that I can't even say right now because I don't know how to say that large of a number on war. And we, the people, are kind of detached from war, unlike we used to be. Like back when there was a draft, anyone had the opportunity to go to war. So it made you pay attention to it more. It made you more fearful of going to war. But now that our war is pretty much solely voluntary, like we don't really see the people going to war like we should. Or we don't worry about the war because I ain't going to the military to go to war, so I ain't worried about it. that in and of itself allows these people to continue to warmonger behind the scenes, and the only people who know about it are the people who are in the military. I've heard stories of people, we were at a party, good friend of ours, he was like, they told me who to vote for in the military. I was like, seriously? He was like, yeah, dude, they legit told me who to vote for. Why do you think they would tell you who to vote for? Because those particular people are in connection with other people who want to continue war in the military. And so on that point, I think that we need to stop being so warmongering. And when we do go to war, we need to spend the capital to bring it back, because leaving it there has continued to bite us in the ass. And the only thing we need to leave there, which we have not done, which we should do, is nation build. You go and break something, fix it. Why do you think Europe is so prosperous now? It's because we gave them one of the largest loans known to man. That's why Germany is prospering right now. They don't have to worry about a military. That's why Japan is prospering right now. They don't have to worry about a military. So when you're not spending your capital on building weapons of destruction, building weapons that kill people, you can focus on the people who live in your country. And you can focus on doubling down your infrastructure and the things that continue to help your country and nation grow. They have one of the best infrastructures known to man at this point, them and Japan, because they're like, oh, our military can only be that big. You know how much more of a budget you have when you do that?
Well,
absolutely.
So we need to nation build in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, and then you leave people like ISIS without the opportunity to be like, oh, the Americans fucked us over. No, dude, look at this new school they left us. Look at this new hospital. They actually did us good, and you need to shut up and get out of here. And it not only debases them and stops people from going to their cause because they want money, but it also allows the people to feel more strongly about standing on their own 2 feet and being like, no, my nation, my city's nice. I'm not going to let you destroy it.
Yeah, the thing though is, like, again, the whole practice of it is profitable. I mean, Japan might be doing better than they have been, but their country still has horrific inflation because of a great period of time where they had nothing to supply.
Mm-hmm.
In movies where Japan has, like, they're sitting down and they've got the, little umbrella and they've got the paper walls and it just looks, I mean, that's not for art, like for, just to be, deep. Like, they had 2 things that they could make. They had tons of trees, like they can make silk, they can make paper. And that's why they were poor as hell. And a lot of the problems that they've had is because they have not been able to escalate themselves based off their resources, so their inflation is huge. Which is why when you go to a country like that, like, for 10,000, yuan or whatever the currency is that they're, the country in question, but in Japan, when you're using something with several zeros behind it and it equals $10 here, or 20 or whatever the amount is, that level of inflation means that you are not producing the kinds of things, like, for your GDP, whatever it is you're trying to aim for, I'm sure they're hitting their year goals. It might be fluctuating, but overall, in the past 4 decades, they've been struggling. And that's the thing, is part of the reason we don't struggle is because after we had our depression, we were screwed. We were done. 1 in 4 people could not get a job. We had 25% unemployment, which is why it's funny when people freak out about 8%. So, the highest we've seen is 10, and they had 15% more. So, we got to the wartime, we had to build all this stuff to compete. We went to war, it pulled us out, and then we came back and those factories were converted into companies because they weren't in need of all the planes and the stuff they were mass producing at that point. But we profit off of having that stuff now. So wars are good for us, is the thing that sucks to say. I think that the Pope, for my stance on this, I think that the Pope's visit as a whole is kind of like entertaining a child. He comes into the room, look at the picture I drew, that's cute, and you send him on his way. He has no military power. He has no influence on anything. What he has to contribute to this country is nothing. We entertain him as a photo op. But that's all we do, because he has no real plans on how to fix anything, and even if he does, it's at our expense. I'm sorry, we're not interested. That's just the way that our country is. I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm not saying that the Pope doesn't have good points or things that we should be more human about, but as far as his visit, I thought was completely pointless, because he only offers up suggestions, which is what we have a whole entire country of people doing anyways. And so since he's not one of the people voting, and he's got no money to contribute to the effort, him coming in and saying, like, well, we should let more immigrants in. We should, be more loving towards people without homes. Dude, like, you are aware that you have an incredibly lucrative religion backing you, right? Like, you have security on the level of, what the president has. And you're complaining about the homeless, like, you could be doing something as well. And even whatever he is doing, everyone can always be doing more. Now, America could be doing more. We could be doing a lot more than what we are, but we kind of don't care about anybody else but ourselves. Mm-hmm. That's kind of our thing. America. Like, I mean, and that's the thing, is like, why doesn't soccer do well here? Because we don't freaking care. Yeah, we have what's in our country, and either you're doing what we're doing, or like, okay, yeah, anime, bring it over, yeah, and then we like do our Western version of it, and like we're all about it. But we don't really care about what's going on in Japan. We don't really care about what they're doing. Like, okay, I like your cell phone, so bring that over here. Cool. Oh, I like that show. Bring it over here. Cool. And that's it. Like, we aren't interested in what everyone else is doing if you're not in our boundaries. So, like, honestly, even if you like discourage the practice of it, it's like if you talk like torture. Do we do that? Even if you discourage the practice, it gets things done. That's the ugly truth. It's the same thing with like what we were talking. Like, it's the same idea of like abortion. It's an ugly thing, but there are positives to it, even if they're not direct positives. Like, there are things that like come from it, even if it's an ugly approach. There are still good things. Whether or not you agree, whether or not you think that should be the case, is relevant. That's the world we live in. So, as far as the Pope's visit overall, I felt that was pointless, and we were just entertaining him for the sake of it, because he doesn't even come here on a regular basis. It's not like we're gonna have to deal with him again. It's not like he's like like it's not like Putin's coming over here and we really have to like have a discussion. It's like,
which we are going to talk about.
Yeah, but it's like, okay, so we should make things better with Cuba. Dude, you're late. We already lifted the embargo. Like, Obama's already been dealing with that situation. The thing with war, we love war. I mean, like, Patton said that. He was like, war is what America is all about. Like, that can be sick, you can hate it, you can say we're over there for the wrong reasons, but people who get into the military in this volunteer age do it because they believe that that's what they need to do to protect their country, and they're all about it. So whatever it is they need to go do, they support that idea. Not all of them. There are those who disagree with things that the military does, but overall, like, yeah, I mean, there are those. There are those, but there are a lot of people who will still say, like, yeah, we need to be in Iraq. We need to be going over
there.
What
I'm trying to say is
the war effort is profitable and people support it.
Is also that when it comes to war, and when it comes to us doing war, we also have to look at who's going to be harmed from war. And what I meant by stating those other countries, like Japan, like Germany, when they're not solely focused on war, when you think about more things than war and how to make war money, what do? You become creative, you become inventive, you think outside the box. Because like you said, you don't have that easy war money. War is kind of like a drug. It's quick, fast money. I don't care how you look at it. I'm giving you this, you giving me that. Substantial, large amounts of money. Again, so it's just saying, it's very addictive. It's very addictive. But when you pull yourself away from that, yes, you're going to recoil a little bit. Yes, your society is going to take a little bit of an economic shock. That happens with any change. When we went from being a farm nation to an industrialized nation, there was a shock in the system. It caused a freaking civil war, for goodness sake. So they're going to be a shock, but don't be afraid of that. And then once you make that change, which we need to as a nation, you need to embrace that there are other ways of making money and that we need to go back up to space.